Morning light spreads across the faded rooftops of old American towns, like a soft exhale from the past, painting everything it touches in hues of honey and nostalgia. You can almost hear time breathing slowly here, as if centuries have simply decided to rest instead of disappear. The cobblestones beneath your feet are damp with dawn, glistening like mirrors that have witnessed too many mornings to count. You walk through plazas where the air still carries the scent of rain, roasted coffee, and something older, the patience of history itself. The wall, weathered and sunburnt, seemed to hold the weight of stories whispered by generations that never really left. Shadows stretch lazily across balconies draped in vines, where the day begins not with rush, but with rhythm. Every door you pass feels like an invitation to step back, not in time, but into memory. The bells from distant towers ring softly, as if reminding the world that beauty can exist without hurry. You stop to watch light crawl along the curve of an archway, and in that stillness, everything feels suspended, as if the world is waiting to wake. The laughter of locals rises like music from another century, blurring the edges between now and then. You realize that here, the past has not vanished. It simply lingers in the corners, content to share the same sunlight. Each color feels ancient and alive, like brushstrokes from a dream that refuses to fade. You forget the ticking of clocks, because this place runs on the rhythm of warmth, silence, and slow breathing. And as the sun climbs higher, you understand that some mornings are not meant to begin. They are meant to continue. Welcome to hidden corners of the Americas that feel like another time. Villa de Leyva, Colombia. Beneath the vast and ever-changing Colombian sky, the town of Villa de Leyva rests in quiet majesty, nestled within a wide valley encircled by rugged mountains, whose slopes carry the breath of ancient winds whispering endlessly through their folds. At first sight, the town's whitewashed facades and weathered red-tiled roofs appear like brushstrokes in an old, unfinished masterpiece, one painted by time itself, paused mid-creation to preserve a beauty too delicate to complete. The air here carries a tapestry of scents: dried dust warmed by the sun, jasmine climbing over stone walls, and the faint, nostalgic perfume of rain falling softly on cobblestones, polished smooth by centuries of unhurried footsteps. In this place, history refuses to be confined within glass cases or forgotten pages. Instead, it lingers palpably in the grain of ancient walls, in the uneven rhythm of footsteps across the Plaza Mayor, and in the golden light that dances upon stone as though remembering every century it has touched. Founded in the 16th century and shaped by hands long turned to dust, Villa de Leyva remains almost miraculously untouched, as if it made a quiet vow to resist the pull of modern time and exist instead in a world where the past breathes beside the present. The town's colonial churches rise gracefully from the earth, their weathered bells singing out stories that echo from an era older than the Republic itself, filling the air with a melancholy music that seems to belong to both heaven and memory. The people move with a gentleness that matches the slow, deliberate rhythm of the town. Their smiles are calm and patient, reflecting a kind of wisdom that only those who have truly mastered the art of stillness can possess. Each home seems alive, almost sentient, as bougainvilleas spill down from balconies like waterfalls of color, and wooden door, smoothed by countless hands, exhale the warmth of generations that have passed quietly within. Beyond the edges of the town, the landscape unfurls like a poem written by the earth itself. Arid deserts stretch into infinity, ancient fossils emerge from the dust, and sacred lagoons shimmer beneath veils of mist woven from myth and time. The Iguaque Sanctuary, sacred in the Muisca legend as the birthplace of humanity, holds a stillness so profound that one can almost feel the pulse of creation echoing through every gust of mountain wind. In the surrounding terrain, fossils of long-extinct marine creatures lie embedded in stone, a silent reminder that this high desert, now kissed by the wind, was once the floor of a vast and restless ocean. Nature in Villa de Leyva tells stories older than memory itself, whispered by fluttering butterflies, sung by the eternal hum of cicadas, and recorded in the shifting dance of sunlight across dry grass and ancient rock. The local cuisine speaks with the humble honesty of the land. Empanadas fried to a perfect golden crisp, fresh milk gathered from nearby farms, and thick, rich chocolate so dense you stir it slowly with bread rather than a spoon. As dusk descends, the narrow streets glow with liquid gold, while the surrounding mountains fade into shadow, and the entire town seems to hover gently in a dreamlike space between day and night, between the real and the remembered. Horses trot softly through the central plaza, their echoing hooves resounding like heartbeats from another era, keeping time with centuries that have long since passed but never truly vanished. The festivals here do not roar with spectacle, but instead bloom quietly as tender celebrations of light, earth, and spirit, where each gesture feels intimate and deeply rooted in the town's soul. During the Festival de Luce, thousands of lanterns drift upward into the night sky, transforming the town into a living constellation that seems to mirror the stars themselves. Local artisans shape clay with reverence, molding it into vessels and figures that tell stories without words. Their hands guided by knowledge older than written language, carried through generations like sacred flame. Even silence has a weight and richness here. A silence that does not merely fill space, but listens back, breathing softly in the intervals between sound. Many travelers find themselves unable to leave when they intended, lulled by the tranquility that seeps into the bones and makes the heart ache gently at the thought of departure. Flowers bloom in defiance of the dry air, their petals vibrant and stubborn, as if declaring that beauty itself can be an act of endurance. Time, in Villa de Leyva, bends and softens like a ribbon of light or the gentle curve of a mountain embracing its valley, moving not forward but around, circling endlessly through memory. The stars above burn with unusual brilliance, as though distance and centuries mean nothing within this timeless sanctuary suspended between earth and eternity. For those who come, a quiet word of advice. Stay the night, for under these skies, some of the clearest in all Colombia, the heavens unfold like a boundless sea of light. Villa de Leyva is not merely a town, but a living poem carved in stone and silence. a hidden corner of the Americas where eternity itself seems to have paused, content to remember. Guanajuato, Mexico. There are cities that move briskly through the present, chasing progress and noise. And then there is Guanajuato, a dream delicately carved into the ochre hills of central Mexico, where time itself pauses, hesitates, and then decides to stay. At dawn, when the first breath of sunlight brushes the ridges, a thin veil of fog curls like smoke around pastel rooftops, while distant bells echo through the valley in a slow, reverent rhythm that feels less like sound and more like memory awakening. Beneath the earth, a labyrinth of tunnels winds through the stone, silent corridors carved by the hands of miners who once sought silver and, unknowingly, left behind a network of whispers and shadows that still seem to breathe. Above, the narrow streets twist and turn like veins of buried treasure, threading their way through plazas that bloom with music and stories, connecting lives, legends, and laughter in a golden web of human rhythm. Once a city that glittered with unimaginable wealth from its silver mines, Guanajuato still glimmers today, not with metal or coins, but with the soft, luminous glow of its past, refracted through every wall, every song, every face. The Grand Basilica of Our Lady rises like a golden heart at the city's center, its domes glinting against the morning light, and its bells tolling with the gravity of centuries layered gently one atop another. In the narrow Callejón del Beso, where balconies nearly touch, lovers lean across the inches that separate them, reenacting a legend that outlived their ancestors and seems destined to outlive time itself. The air hums gently with a symphony of mariachis, laughter spilling from doorways, and the faint, honeyed scent of marigolds drifting up from the markets where vendors call out like poets. Yet beneath all this vivid color lies a pulse of mystery, a shadowed world of mummies, crypts, and tunnels that murmur of forgotten souls and stories too old to be told aloud. Inside the famous Mummy Museum, the preserved faces stare silently through glass, their expressions caught between fear and peace, serving as a haunting reminder that in Guanajuato, even death refuses to fade completely. And yet, outside those museum walls, life bursts forth in color and motion, bold, unashamed, and endlessly alive, as though the city itself knows that beauty and mortality are simply two halves of the same heartbeat. It is precisely this contrast between brilliance and decay, between joy and shadow, that gives Guanajuato its strange, magnetic power, drawing travelers not just to see it, but to feel it in their bones. Artists, painters, and poets have long attempted to capture its essence in words and pigment. But the city always keeps something for itself, an unsolved secret folded quietly within its hills. The surrounding mountains seem to gather protectively around it, their slopes embracing the town like a cupped hand, sheltering its stories from the erosion of wind and time. As night descends, the windows glow with molten light, and the winding streets shimmer like veins of liquid gold flowing down the hills, turning the entire city into a constellation mapped by human warmth. Locals stroll through the plazas with an unhurried grace, as if time were not a relentless tide but a familiar friend walking beside them at dusk. The music of mariachis swells again, rising into the cool night air, blending with the distant toll of church bells to create a harmony both joyous and achingly nostalgic. Even the city's cuisine tells its own tale. The enchiladas, mineras, rich and red with chili sauce, speak of the miner's endurance, of hardship transformed through generations into comfort, culture, and pride. Stone statues of heroes and revolutionaries stand like silent sentinels across the plazas, their eyes fixed forever on horizons that have already passed, witnessing the centuries as calmly as mountains do. If you listen closely, the breeze itself carries faint murmurs of the silver rush, of ambition and greed and survival, echoing softly between the canyon walls that once glittered with ore. Art doesn't merely decorate Guanajuato, it flows through it like blood, pulsing in the murals, the festivals, the crafts, and even in the way light paints the walls each afternoon. Travelers arrive seeking beauty, but they often stay for something far stranger and more tender, the uncanny sense that the city has been waiting for them, and once they've seen it, it will never quite let them go. The longer one lingers here, the more blurred the boundary becomes between what has been and what still is. Past and present begin to mingle like ink in water, until all that remains is color and emotion. A word of advice to wanderers: explore the tunnels on foot. Let the echo of your footsteps and the flicker of dim light reveal what no guidebook could ever explain. Guanajuato teaches through silence and stone. For in the end, Guanajuato is not merely a city, but a living symphony of light and shadow, a place suspended delicately between history and eternity, where every corner hums with memory and every moment feels eternal. Itacaré, Brazil. Between the vast sweep of the Atlantic forest and the endless expanse of the ocean lies Itacaré, a shimmering mosaic of green, blue, and gold that moves not in straight lines but in rhythms, soft, liquid, poetic, as though the land itself were swaying to some eternal song. The air here is thick and heavy with scent, sea salt mingling with the earthy sweetness of cacao, creating a fragrance that feels ancient, as if it were born from the very pulse of the earth and carried on the breath of the tide. Waves crash relentlessly against cliffs sculpted by centuries of wind and water, each one a note in the town's unending melody, a hymn of salt and motion echoing through the hollows of stone. The beaches unfold one after another, Resende, Tiririca, Ribeira, each a delicate crescent of golden sand embraced by palms, wildflowers, and the constant murmur of the sea whispering secrets only the wind understands. The jungle hums with a dense, electric kind of life, cicadas droning like tiny engines, toucans calling from the treetops, and monkeys leaping through the canopy in flashes of movement that make the forest seem to breathe. Sunlight seeps through the leaves like molten honey, dripping over ferns and tangled roots, dappling the narrow trails that twist toward hidden waterfalls and secret coves where time seems to pause to listen. Itacaré does not shout. It speaks in murmurs, in Portuguese and wind, in the gentle cadence of waves retreating over sand and returning again like the repetition of a prayer. The people move and speak with that same rhythm, unhurried, deliberate, their voices low and warm, as if shaped by the sun itself and softened by the sea breeze. At dawn, fishermen steer their bright wooden boats back toward shore, hulls painted in joyful colors, nets glistening with silver fish and the pale shimmer of morning light. The town itself seems to pulse with an invisible beat. Its heart synchronized with the crash of the surf and the thrum of drums carried faintly from somewhere deep in the streets. History lingers quietly beneath it all, tucked beneath the laughter of children running barefoot through the alleys, beneath the scent of frying cassava curling from kitchen windows. Once a humble cocoa port shaded by hardship and heat, Itacaré has transformed with time's grace into a refuge for surfers, artists, wanderers, and anyone who has ever chased the sun in search of peace. Each evening, as the horizon begins to dissolve into molten orange and liquid gold, locals and travelers alike gather by the water's edge, their silhouettes dark against a sky that seems to burn itself into memory. The ocean mirrors the heavens so completely that it becomes impossible to tell where one ends and the other begins, sky and sea merging into a single infinite blue flame. The food here is its own kind of music, vivid and sensual. Flavors that rise and fall in rhythm like a song. Spicy, creamy, fragrant, and kissed always by the gentle sweetness of the tropics. Coconut, lime, and red pepper mingle in clay pots where the air fills with steam and memory, and love simmers quietly beneath every gesture of the cooks who have inherited recipes older than speech. The forest, dense and tender, holds spirits older than history. Locals say that the rivers themselves remember every face that has ever bathed in their cool green waters, keeping them alive in whispers beneath the current. When night arrives, it does so slowly and sensually, the air still warm, thick with the perfume of fruit and salt, while laughter drifts over the sound of drums, and the waves murmur at the edge of darkness like a heartbeat just beneath the surface. Time in Itacaré doesn't move in straight lines. It turns gently in circles, mirroring the tides, flowing backward and forward until every moment feels like it has already been and is still yet to come. Every sound becomes part of a single, living song. The crash of surf, the sigh of wind through palms, the faint echo of music from a beachside bar, all blending together into something almost sacred. To walk through Itacaré is to step inside a living heartbeat, to feel yourself carried in its rhythm until even your own breath seems to match the ocean's. Then comes the moon, rising slow and silver over the vast Atlantic, casting a shimmering path of light across the waves, as if inviting dreamers to follow it beyond the edge of this world. The stars hang low in the warm sky, heavy and luminous, like fruit ripe for the picking, offering themselves to those who still remember how to wonder. A word to the traveler: rise early, take the forest trails at dawn. The air then is clear as crystal, and the earth itself seems to wake beneath your feet, glowing with dew and beginning light. For Itacaré is not just a destination, but a dream made tangible. A hidden corner of the Americas where time turns tender, where the tropics breathe, and where the soul, for once, learns to be still. Telluride, Colorado, USA. Deep within a vast box canyon, embraced on all sides by the towering, snow-brushed peaks of the San Juan Mountains, lies Telluride, a town that feels less like a destination you arrive at and more like a vision from another century, a place where time pauses reverently before it dares to continue. Snow-capped peaks stand around it like vigilant sentinels carved from eternity, their ridge lines glinting in the sun, and with every cool gust of mountain air that sweeps through the valley comes the faint sound of history whispering softly through the pine forests. Founded in the 1870s as a rough-and-tumble silver mining camp, the town has endured avalanches and blizzards, booms and collapses, and the slow but relentless turning of time itself. Yet it remains, sturdy and proud, like a memory carved in wood and stone. The wooden storefronts, still standing with weathered dignity, tell the wordless stories of prospectors who once followed dreams so wild they climbed into the clouds, chasing fortune through snow and silence. When morning light spills like liquid gold over Bridal Veil Falls, the entire valley seems to shimmer and breathe, as though the mountains themselves have been dusted with memory and awakened by light. Telluride feels both ancient and eternal, a frontier town preserved in grace, its spirit caught forever between the ruggedness of wilderness and the refinement of history. The streets are lined with brightly painted Victorian houses, each one lovingly restored, their colors vivid against a backdrop of a steep, wild ridges that seem to watch over them like benevolent giants. History breathes here in tangible form, in the creak of old floorboards beneath your feet, in the gleam of a brass doorknob turned by generations, and in the rhythmic swing of a saloon door that still seems to hum with echoes of laughter and song. Locals speak with quiet pride of the time when Butch Cassidy robbed his first bank right here in town. And if you stand still enough, you might almost hear the phantom echo of hooves clattering down a dirt street that no longer exists. Yet for all its myth and legend, Telluride never feels like a museum frozen in amber. It's a living, breathing, fiercely independent town, moving to the pulse of the mountains and the steady rhythm of its own heart. In winter, skiers glide down white slopes that once bore the weight of mule trains and miners' carts, tracing arcs of joy across trails once carved for labor and survival. In summer, those same hillsides erupt with color as wildflowers spill across old trails. Columbine, lupine, and Indian paintbrush painting the mountains in a riot of impossible hues. Music fills the air when the Telluride Bluegrass Festival returns each year. Guitars and banjos mingling with the thin mountain wind until the notes drift skyward, merging with the clouds like prayers. The community that remains here is small, yet unshakably strong, bound together by shared winters, shared summits, and the quiet understanding that to live in Telluride is to live by the rhythm of the land itself. You'll find no billboards here, no neon, no sprawling chains, only the raw, undiluted spirit of the mountains, proud and untamed, woven into every breath of air. Nature rules everything in this place. She decides when the snow will fall, when the rivers will swell, when the silence will return, and when the human world must yield again to hers. Every hike becomes a pilgrimage. Every summit feels like a secret whispered to the sky, a moment where the heart forgets the noise of the world and listens only to wind and stone. Even the wildlife here seems aware that you are an intruder. Bears lumbering through the woods with ancient patience, elk stepping through the meadows with regal ease, and eagles circling the ridges with the calm authority of those who have always belonged. When night descends, the stars pour down like molten silver across the black canvas of the valley, and the stillness glows with a kind of reverent silence that feels almost holy. The cold mountain air bites softly at your lungs, tasting sharp and clean, the kind of purity that reminds you what breath was meant to feel like before cities taught you to forget. Telluride's charm lies not in its perfection, but in its defiance of time, in its refusal to trade authenticity for convenience or wildness for comfort. It refuses to modernize completely, holding fast to the raw elegance of its frontier soul, the same soul that has watched centuries change around it and has simply chosen not to follow. Travel tip: arrive by the free gondola at sunset, when the light spills through the canyon like fire, and the valley below unfolds in a view so breathtaking, it will make you forget which century you're standing in. Telluride isn't just hidden in the mountains. It's hidden in time, a quiet sanctuary of the Americas where the Old West still breathes softly beneath the snow, and where every gust of wind feels like a memory returned. Parati, Brazil. Parati is a dream the ocean keeps having, a timeless vision of salt and stone, where the tide breathes through cobblestones and memory clings to every ripple like light trapped in water. When the moon lifts the sea into the streets, the whole town becomes a mirror of itself, where reflections glide beside you like ghosts remembering how to walk. It feels alive in a way modern cities have long forgotten. Each weathered wall exhales the stories of centuries, and every sigh of the tide seems to carry a secret meant only for those who listen. The Atlantic forest surrounds it like an ancient guardian spirit, vast and green and unyielding, watching the town's slow rhythm from its mist-wrapped hills. Locals whisper that the jungle and the sea forged an old pact here, one promising to shield parity in the golden hours of daylight, the other to cradle it gently beneath the stars. The result is a world suspended perfectly between stillness and motion, as if time itself hesitates to pass too quickly through so delicate a balance. Fog drifts down from the mountains, winding through alleys and church doors like sacred smoke curling from an unseen altar. The bells toll softly across the harbor, their echoes dissolving into the low, eternal hum of the ocean that never stops speaking. Here, there's no clear line dividing earth from water, only the shimmering boundary of reflection, trembling with every breath of wind. Parody's history feels less like it was built than summoned, as though the tides themselves shaped its stones into prayer. Old sailors once said that the sea never forgets the ships that left this harbor, carrying both hopes and hauntings across the horizon. Perhaps that's why the air hangs so thick with memory, heavy as if every gust carries the weight of countless departures and returns. White dominates everything, the walls glowing as though painted not by hands, but by the quiet mercy of light itself. Blue doors, golden shutters, and bursts of crimson flowers break through the silence, coloring the calm with the pulse of life. People move through the streets with a reverent slowness, as if careful not to disturb the invisible souls still wandering just beyond sight. Time stretches here until it almost stops entirely, and you begin to realize you're walking through history's own reflection, caught between what was and what still dreams. Parity is not haunted in the way ghost stories claim, but it lingers inside you afterward, like a song that refuses to fade. The cobblestones hum with centuries of footsteps, and the water repeats their rhythm endlessly, telling and retelling what it can never forget. Sometimes the sea returns to reclaim its territory, spilling gently into the streets as if reminding the town who its true maker is. Lanterns sway in the breeze, their flickering light making the whole place seem as though it's breathing beneath a glass dome. Even the stars feel nearer here, hanging low above the harbor like silent guardians keeping watch over the sleeping town. The night carries a scent of salt and secrets, of melted wax and forgotten centuries folded into the wind. You don't simply see parody, you drift through it, weightless, like wandering inside a dream that once belonged to someone else. Travel tip: come when the full moon reigns high. That's when the tide swells into the streets, and the border between the real and the reflected dissolves entirely. Parody is not merely a town. It is a living memory the sea refuses to let fade. A hidden corner of the Americas eternally adrift inside its own luminous dream. Izamal, Mexico. Deep in the heart of the Yucatan Peninsula lies Izamal, a small yet timeless Mexican town where every wall glows with a golden hue so radiant it feels as though the sun itself descended from the heavens and decided to make its home among the people. Known throughout Mexico as the Yellow City, its sun-soaked streets shimmer endlessly under the tropical light, transforming every narrow turn and quiet plaza into something out of a painter's most vivid and nostalgic dream. Izamal rests just 45 miles east of Mérida, surrounded by a low emerald jungle and the hushed remnants of ancient temples, where the air still hums with the voices of a civilization that once ruled the stars. Long before the Spanish conquistadors carved their path through these lands, the town was already a sacred Mayan pilgrimage center, devoted to the powerful god Itzamna, whose presence is said to linger in every stone. The Great Pyramid of Kinechkakmu still rises solemnly above the golden rooftops, a silent and unyielding guardian of the pre-Columbian world, watching centuries pass without ever closing its eyes. Locals say that if you climb to its summit in the tender light of dawn, you can feel the ancient gods awakening beneath your feet, their pulse beating softly through the warmth of the stone. Spanish colonial architecture later blossomed beside the weathered Mayan temples, weaving together two vastly different worlds into one seamless and eternal breath of history. The Convento de San Antonio de Padua, perched atop the ruins of a pyramid, gleams in the sunlight like a celestial mirage, glowing gold against a sky so blue it seems to stretch into infinity. Its enormous atrium, second in size only to the Vatican, feels paradoxically intimate, filled with a sacred stillness that makes every footstep sound like a prayer. Each cobblestone street seems to murmur its own story, whispering of faith and conquest, of quiet endurance and unbroken spirit. The air itself feels alive, carrying the scent of warm corn tortillas, freshly cut limes, and the smoky sweetness of cochinita pibil, slow roasted to perfection in hidden kitchens. As evening falls, soft guitar music drifts lazily through the yellow alleys where locals glide by on bicycles, greeting every passerby by name as if the entire town were one extended family. Izamal is not merely a town, it is a heartbeat, a rhythm of life that has pulsed steadily through the centuries without ever losing its grace or warmth. Yet beneath its charm and serenity lies something more enigmatic. A network of whispered legends about tunnels said to connect the ancient pyramids hidden beneath the city's foundation. Locals tell stories of priests who once traversed those secret passages, performing rituals in candlelight long before the Spanish ever set foot on these sacred grounds. Whether those tales are myth or memory, the earth beneath Izamal seems to breathe softly, as if storing countless secrets that wait patiently to awaken again. The tropical flora thrives here. Bougainvillea cascades like pink fire over the golden walls, and tall palms sway with an easy rhythm, dancing to the invisible music of the wind. Tiny hummingbirds flash emerald and sapphire as they dart through courtyards filled with curling incense smoke and the gentle flicker of prayer candles. The people of Izamal carry themselves with a quiet and radiant pride, seamlessly blending their deep Mayan roots with their enduring Catholic faith, creating a harmony that feels both ancient and divine. Their days unfold to the slow rhythm of church bells, bustling markets, and the sun that dips behind the rooftops in a blaze of amber and gold. When evening comes, the sky turns to molten light, the same brilliant gold that paints every wall and, somehow, every heart that beats within the town. Visitors who wander these streets do not merely walk through layers of history, they seem to dissolve into it completely, absorbed by something timeless and kind. Even time itself hesitates here, unwilling to break the sacred stillness that holds Izamal in its golden embrace. And if you stand quietly at night, when the air is thick with warmth and silence, you might hear faint echoes of ancient chants rising once more from beneath the stones. Izamal, a place where the past never truly vanished, but simply chose to shine brighter with every passing century. Todos Santos, Mexico. Todos Santos, perched quietly along the wild and sun-drenched Pacific coast of Baja California, feels like it belongs to another century entirely, a place suspended outside of time, untouched by hurry, and unforgettable in its quiet grace. Each morning, the sun pours molten gold over the weathered adobe walls, and the ocean, as if answering in kind, shimmers back with a vast expanse of liquid silver that dances all the way to the horizon. The air hums with a tender fusion of salt-kissed breezes and the slow, shimmering heat that drifts up from the desert's endless sands. Founded in the early 18th century as a humble mission town, Todos Santos once pulsed with the rhythm of sugar mills, trade caravans, and the distant echo of church bells calling across the valley. Today, its sweetness lingers not in sugarcane or commerce, but in something deeper, in spirit, in warmth, in the unspoken kindness that fills its narrow streets. The cobblestones seem to carry the layered music of centuries, where the faint hymns of the colonial past mingle seamlessly with the strum of surf guitars rising from the beach below. Every corner offers a small revelation: an artist's sunlit studio spilling color into the street, a hand-painted mural telling stories of saints and sea, or a sleepy cafe breathing out the scent of coffee, cinnamon, and memory. The town itself has a way of softening the edges of your thoughts, of slowing the heartbeat until you remember what it means simply to breathe and exist without rush. Down at Playa Cerritos, the waves roll in with hypnotic precision, and surfers carve their paths through the Pacific like dancers tracing ancient prayers written in water. Beyond the shore, the desert unfolds in solemn beauty, a vast cathedral built of sand, cactus, and silence, where the wind becomes the only voice. Life here clings to the sun with quiet tenacity. Agave blossoms flame against the horizon, ironwood trees twist toward the sky, and golden marigolds bloom defiantly against the dust. Pelicans glide low in perfect arcs, cutting through the glare of the sea, while under the moon's pale watch, sea turtles pull themselves ashore to bury new generations beneath the starlit sand. The people of Todos Santos are born storytellers, warm, grounded, and fiercely proud, keeping their traditions alive while welcoming the world with a generosity that feels ancient. Their festivals ignite the town in a kaleidoscope of color and devotion, blending indigenous ritual with Spanish fervor, nights of fire, music, and laughter that spill joy into the streets. Food here is both comfort and poetry. Fish grilled over smoky mesquite wood, ceviche bright with lime and sunlight, and tortillas pressed lovingly by hand in kitchens that smell like home. At dusk, mariachi melodies drift through the warm evening air, curling between palm shadows and open doorways, like promises that have never been broken. When night deepens, the town glows beneath constellations so vivid they seem close enough to reach, as though the heavens themselves have leaned down to listen. Yet there is something else beneath the beauty, a subtle strangeness, a feeling that time here doesn't obey the same rules it does elsewhere. Some say the town rests upon sacred ground where invisible energy hums beneath the soil, pulsing gently like an unseen tide beneath your feet. Whatever the reason, Todos Santos transforms from a destination into a state of mind, a quiet surrender to the pace of the earth and the patience of the sea. It's the kind of place that captures you gently, without warning, holding you in its golden light until you forget to count the days. And when you finally leave, you'll discover that the town hasn't remained behind at all, but has quietly followed you, tucked somewhere deep within. Todos Santos, a place where the world still remembers how to be still, and where stillness itself feels like grace. Barichara, Colombia. They say that in Barichara, even the stones can speak. If you stand still long enough and listen with the patience of the mountains, you'll hear them murmuring the stories of centuries beneath your feet. The village rests high above the deep valleys of Santander, Colombia, glowing like a golden mirage suspended in the Andean sun, where light bends around its edges as though reluctant to leave. Its narrow streets are older than memory itself, each cobblestone worn smooth by the passing of time and the quiet devotion of countless hands that once shaped both roads and destinies. The sandstone walls seem to breathe warmth and memory, exhaling the echoes of prayer, laughter, and the gentle percussion of rain that has fallen here for generations. Founded hundreds of years ago, Barichara was born from equal parts faith and stone, a sanctuary for the traveler who has walked too long and seeks rest not just for the body, but for the soul. Its architecture carries a kind of divine humility. Whitewashed facades gleaming beneath the sun, terracotta rooftops blazing red against the sky, and carved wooden balconies overflowing with flowers like blessings made visible. The light here transforms everything it touches, soft and golden at dawn, burning with purity at noon, and then deepening by dusk into something almost sacred, as if heaven itself were descending. Inside the cathedral, Shadows glide slowly across the honey-colored stone, moving with the measured grace of silent monks lost in prayer. Outside, artisans work in patient rhythm, tapping their chisels against the sandstone, coaxing from the earth shapes that seem to emerge already half alive. Each sculpture they create seems to vibrate faintly with the same tranquil heartbeat that runs through the town, as though stone and soul were made of the same material. Nature embraces Baracara with a tenderness that feels eternal. Canyons unfurl toward infinity, cliffs shimmer in the haze, and the horizon stretches wide enough to swallow thought itself. High above, hawks circle in wide, unhurried spirals, while the scent of ripe guava and warm dust drifts lazily through the air. But if you listen more deeply, beneath the wind and birdsong, you may hear something subtler, a soft murmur, almost imperceptible, rising from the ground. Locals insist it is the town breathing, the living pulse of the sandstone foundation that holds every step, every secret. Others whisper that somewhere deep below, hidden within the folds of the rock, lies an ancient Guan tomb where gold still gleams faintly in the eternal dark. These mysteries lend Baracara its strange serenity, not eerie, but sacred, as though time itself stands here in quiet vigil, unwilling to disturb the peace it once helped build. Each evening, as the bells toll from the church tower, the golden light spills slowly across the rooftops like molten honey sliding toward the valley. Children chase each other through the plaza, while dogs doze in the cool shade, and the world seems to have forgotten the meaning of urgency. The flora blooms in perpetual abundance: crimson hibiscus, white jasmine, and cascades of purple bougainvillea climbing the old stone walls like verses of a poem written by the wind. The food tastes of the land and its lineage: roasted corn and fresh beans, dark coffee rich with earth, and laughter shared across rough wooden tables worn smooth by use. Perhaps it's the silence that holds them, or the spell woven by the stones, or perhaps the two are one and the same. Barichara never bends to the visitor's pace or expectations. Instead, it reshapes the visitor, quietly, patiently, until the heart beats slower in harmony with its timeless calm. You arrive here merely passing through, but you leave as if the place has inscribed you into its story forever. And when you finally depart, long after the dust settles behind you, the stones keep whispering softly, your name among them, carried by the wind. Ouro Preto, Brazil. Ouro Preto feels like stepping inside a living painting that never dries, each brushstroke rendered in stone, mist, and memory, where color and shadow breathe together in an endless conversation with time. The city clings to its steep emerald mountainsides with the fragile grace of a dream, cascading downward in waves of terracotta roofs and sunlit golden walls that gleam like treasure at dawn. Once the wealthiest town in all the Americas, Ouro Preto was born from the veins of gold that pulsed through the earth and bound together by an unshakable faith that both sanctified and scarred it. Its very name, meaning black gold, stands as a reminder that beauty often hides beneath darkness, that glory and struggle have always shared the same soil. The churches rise like citadels of devotion and repentance, each one an intricate masterpiece carved by hands that sought redemption through art, faith, and sweat. The air feels heavy here, thick with incense, the soft ache of rain, and the faint echo of hymns that still seem to rise from the stone itself. If you pause and listen long enough, you can almost hear the miners' ghostly songs drifting from the mountains, their voices carried on the wind like fragments of a forgotten prayer. Ouro Preto's beauty rests not in perfection, but in its flaws, in the chipped walls, the uneven cobblestones, and the way history breathes through the cracks like something stubbornly alive. Artists roam its winding alleys as though on pilgrimage, searching for the same elusive light that once guided Alejandro's trembling hands. His statues still watch from their solemn perches, their faces suspended between agony and grace, as if forever caught in the act of remembering. The people who live here are born storytellers, descendants of sculptors, dreamers, and the enslaved, carrying within them the intertwined legacies of creation and endurance. Their spirit endures in song and laughter, in the music that spills from doorways at night, and in the quiet pride that flickers behind every smile. The local markets bloom with color and sound, hand-woven fabrics rippling like banners, jewelry forged in fire, and coffee so dark it seems to hold a universe in its depths. Beyond the town's edges, waterfalls tumble through lush forests where orchids bloom like small miracles and hummingbirds flash like living jewels. As evening settles, the air cools and fog drapes itself over the hills, softening the gold into a luminous silver that feels almost divine. And of course, there are the whispers, stories of treasure buried beneath forgotten chapels, of secret brotherhoods and rituals swallowed by time. Some swear that during the fiercest storms, pale lights flicker deep inside the abandoned mines, moving as though guided by invisible hands. Whether they are spirits or reflections, no one dares to find out. The mystery itself has become part of the city's pulse. Uro Preto guards its secrets closely, like an aging queen who still wears her crown in the dark, proud, unbending, and endlessly beautiful. Yet for all its mystery, the warmth here is real. Its people greet strangers not as outsiders, but as those who have somehow come back to where they belong. Every cobblestone seems to hum with the layered music of time, each note lingering between centuries, tender and eternal. The gold that built this city may have dimmed, but another kind endures, quieter, human, luminous, glinting in eyes and laughter, in kindness freely given. Uro Preto is no relic of the past. It is a living heartbeat carved into stone, still echoing with the rhythm of its origins. You don't simply visit this place, you remember it, deeply and instinctively, like a song you once knew by heart without realizing it. And long after you've gone, its glow lingers in you, a soft light trapped within memory, refusing to fade. Puebla, Mexico. Puebla isn't merely a relic of the past. It's a living heartbeat of Mexico's soul, pulsing through the cobbled streets and echoing from every bell tower, reminding you that history here has never truly gone to sleep. Just a few hours' journey from the endless motion of Mexico City, this colonial jewel seems to exist in its own suspended world, serene yet vibrant, like a memory that refuses to fade. Narrow cobblestone streets twist and wind past walls dressed in colorful tiles, while domes shimmer like burnished copper beneath the fierce embrace of the midday sun. You can feel the hum of the city vibrating around you, a symphony woven from fragments of history, the rhythm of commerce, and the low, steady hymn of everyday life. Locals gather beneath the shade of jacaranda trees, chatting softly over steaming tamales in plazas where conquistadors once planned their empires and priests whispered their prayers. The air itself carries the essence of Puebla, a mingling of roasted corn, strong coffee, and the lingering sweetness of pan de azúcar that turns every breath into a quiet celebration. Whichever way you turn, beauty meets you halfway. Wrought iron balconies overflowing with flowers, hidden courtyards glimmering with fountains, and azulejos hand-painted in colors that seem to hold the sunlight captive. The city's architecture feels eternal yet awake, as though the centuries have not aged it, but taught it how to live gracefully alongside time. Street vendors line the old avenues selling clay pots, woven baskets, and laughter beside chic cafes and boutique galleries, centuries blending together in one effortless exhale. Above it all, the twin towers of the great cathedral rise into the sky, watching over the city like patient sentinels of both faith and folklore. But Puebla's true magic isn't trapped within its stones. It hums through its people, who carry the city's warmth in their gestures, their words, their way of moving through the world. They navigate the balance between tradition and transformation, like dancers poised between steps, proud, graceful, and unwilling to let the rhythm break. Students spill into the colonial streets after class, their laughter echoing between walls that have stood longer than their own family names. Artists paint sweeping murals across centuries-old facades, turning history itself into a living, breathing canvas of color and defiance. The local markets are alive with motion and melody, a sensory symphony of spices and laughter, bargaining voices, the clink of pottery, and the shimmer of fabric under morning light. And then, there's the food, Puebla's legendary cuisine. Each dish a story layered in flavor. Mole poblano, dark as midnight. Chamitas overflowing with texture, and chalupas bursting with spice and life. Even the recipes here speak of the city's past, of conquest and fusion transformed into art, of survival turned to celebration. Yet beneath all the color and sound, Puebla keeps its quiet mysteries, the unseen places that whisper from below. Tunnels and hidden catacombs snake underfoot, some rediscovered by accident, others lost to the centuries and sealed by silence. Locals say revolutionaries, priests, and dreamers once moved through those shadowed corridors, unseen and unstoppable beneath watchful colonial eyes. Is it truth or legend? Perhaps both, because in Puebla, the line between history and myth dissolves as naturally as sugar in coffee. When night settles over the city, the distant volcanoes glow faintly on the horizon, and the bells send their soft echoes rolling through the cool, perfumed air. Time seems to slow its stride then, and the city exhales, its pulse steady, ancient, and utterly at peace with itself. Puebla has no need to dazzle or prove its worth. It exists in a state of quiet perfection, its beauty patient and self-assured. It is a place where history doesn't trail behind you like a shadow. It walks beside you, alive, luminous, eternal. We've wandered through hidden corners that whispered stories of centuries past, places where time seemed to slow, where beauty lingered in every cracked tile, faded fresco, and weathered wall. We've felt the hush of old plazas at dawn, watched the sunlight stretch across cobblestones, and listened to echoes of lives once lived, still murmuring through narrow streets. But the road ahead calls us somewhere different now, into the vibrant, electric heartbeat of the present, where the Americas no longer whisper, they sing. Here, the air itself feels charged, humming with color, sound, and motion. Every skyline gleams like a promise. Every mural tells a new story of who we are becoming. These next destinations don't simply rest beneath the weight of their history. They rise from it, bursting forward with energy and imagination, constantly rewriting themselves in real time. Culture here doesn't just exist, it performs. It pulses beneath neon lights, dances in crowded markets, and spills from open windows in a rush of laughter, language, and song. Every block hums with rhythm. Every street corner becomes a stage for expression. You can feel ambition in the air, raw, chaotic, creative, and sense the heartbeat of people who are building tomorrow with their hands, their art, their joy. The past becomes a backdrop, the present takes center stage, and the future feels close enough to touch, alive in every mural, every melody, every midnight conversation that drifts out onto the street. These cities don't just invite you to look, they pull you in until you're part of their pulse. You don't simply visit them, you absorb them, you move with them, you get gloriously lost in them. This is a new kind of journey now, faster, louder, brighter, yet still full of soul. It's about the now, the restless beating heart of the modern Americas, where the world feels wide awake and endlessly alive. So buckle in. The road ahead doesn't lead to a memory, it leads to the moment.